All right, guys, nice to meet you all. I'm Alexander from Squish Gym. So, we wanted to start doing reviews of some of the pieces of equipment that we have here in the gym for you guys. One of the main things that I've heard that most people haven't heard about or haven't seen a review is the Apex rack from Sorinex. So, that will be our first piece that we're going to be showcasing to you guys. So right here behind me, we have the full rack in its entirety. And you see the cool thing about the Apex rack compared to many other racks is that it's so versatile. You basically get a full gym with a pretty small footprint when it comes to the amount of square footage that it takes width-wise. So obviously if you don't have the length, you won't be able to put it in, but fundamentally you're basically getting a full cable machine, a full rack where you can do everything that you want, and it has a lot of customizability because of the 1-inch holes that are across the rack, which I'll explain in more detail in a little bit. So the first thing I have to say about working with Sorinex, and this is one of the main differences with other competitors in my opinion, is their attention to detail. Like these dudes went through me with 120 emails or so where we went over the details of the arch, for example. Right here I put the logo of my company, and they designed this with some images that I sent to them. At the same time, this same design, they also applied to the lat pull down rowing station. You can see the logo on the bottom. And then there's small details where you get to see the quality of Sorinex in general. The rack is built like a tank. It's gonna be very hard for this thing to receive any significant damage. They send you a stainless steel lat pull down bar and a stainless steel closed grip bar that I'll show you in a little bit. The stack is 300 pounds of weight with a 1-to-1 conversion. The adjustable cable column on the corner is 250 pounds and its weight ratio is 2-to-1. So you get a little more leeway out of how many more exercises you can do from that cable station. And that's the handle that I was talking about. So one of the cool things about the rack in itself is the index chin-up bar that they have here. This is a really cool design. Basically what it permits you is to move the handle in and out as you need it, depending on the width of the person that's gonna use it. And it has a 360-degree capability of rotation. So you can potentially play around with different handles for your pull-ups and train different fibers or make the exercise harder, keep changing up the stimuli. The half safeties of the rack are an optional add-on, and they basically permit you to work a little bit outside of the rack. They're pretty heavy duty. One of the cool things about it is that they still maintain the 1-inch hole here. So for example, if you wanted to add band resistance to rack pulls or bench presses, you could potentially put band pegs here and adjust the band towards the bar. Gives a lot of customization. Back here, we have a step-up station that goes perfectly well with the half safeties. And on the back here, it's a barbell holder and a pin holder. So this is something that I haven't seen from Rogue, which is really cool because it really puts these things out of the way and it gives you the possibility to actually store your barbells and particularly the step-up. So it's a nice touch from Sorinex of wanting to optimize space and take things out of the way so that you can potentially configure the rack for a different type of exercise. Now, the jammer arms are not part of the original design. These were added in, and I honestly highly recommend them. These jammer arms are by far superior to Rogue in my opinion, but they're way harder to actually have them move up and down, since the jammer arm itself has two safeties. The first safety is a lever here that's pressure controlled, and then it actually has the pulley to adjust the height. So as you can see, it's kind of harder to move, less smoother, But once you put in this safety, it makes it so that it's extremely well put and it's not gonna jiggle at all. So I'm to the lat pull down rowing machine. So this station, you basically have to take this cable and connect it to the top so that you can use the rowing station on the bottom. When you set it up for that configuration, it goes all the way down to the bottom. You can open these two as footrests and then pull them out to the distance that you require to have space to be able to row. It's pretty cool because you are getting a full 300-pound stack. And honestly, if you have this in your garage, it's perfect for 1 or 2 people. My critique with it would be is that when you're training multiple people, it does become a hassle changing up the configuration constantly. And in that sense, I think that the Rogue Lat pull down would be a superior choice. And even a more superior choice would be the Legends Lat row station that actually has the rowing pool coming from the middle. So you can actually sit down as opposed to go to the ground. So one of the cool things about the Sorinex rack is the width of the rack compared to other brands or other types of racks. If you guys notice, there's quite a bit of free space open between the beginning of the sleeve and the J-cup. So this makes it so that you can actually take out the bar very easily with weight and it won't actually impact on the J-cup, and you won't have other type of struggles like, you know, bouncing around in the rack as you're taking out the weight. It's a common problem with a lot of beginners. So the whole rack uses 1-inch holes, and almost a big chunk of the fitness companies now use that as the standard for rack accessories. So this makes it so that you can basically add whatever you want to the rack unless it is width related. Since, for example, Rogue's racks are 2-inch wider than this and it's pretty snug against the sleeve, you wouldn't be able to put a pull-up accessory that's from Rogue on a Sorinex rack if you're using Sorinex cross members. So the bar itself, the rack itself comes with stall bars behind here. We've only installed these 3 in this width. You can basically use these bars for different types of stretches or mobility as band holds. They can be pretty versatile too, because you could at some point end up doing inverse rows with the handles with your feet on top of the bars. So they give a little more versatility to the rack. Like this would even be more marked if you, for example, wanted to use the back part of the rack and you didn't want this against the wall. You could potentially use this as multiple types of holds or band points to produce different types of exercises. So aside from that, the rack comes with a lot of storage options. So one thing that they have at the Sorinex website is different types of hooks where you can literally store whatever you can think of. With the rack, you get 4 of these band pegs that we're using them to store bands. You get 4 of these hooks, which right now we're using here for belts. We have 2 on the other side of the rack that we're using for storing glute ham rollers right here at the top. This big chunky one is for holding the J squat, but we're using it right now to house the Rogue multi pull-up bar. And they have these movable band pegs that you can use to add bands from different angles. Right here at the bottom, we have something that's not part of the rack normally. This is a Rogue ring holder that you can use for battle ropes, and we added it into the rack just to use it as a battle rope station. But this proves my point that the accessories are interchangeable, even if they use different types of spacing. So now, I honestly cannot talk about how cool this rack is in general if you're going to train. Like if you're starting an equipment space, the main thing that you need is barbell plates and a rack. And then from there come the cable stations. Cable functionality adds so much to a workout, and you can get so much accessory work done when you have proper cable stations. And in that sense, this rack does it all. It gives you the 2 main elements needed for a well-rounded training program. With that said though, Sorinex is really expensive. So it's basically the Cadillac of racks. Anything that Sorinex does in itself might be around the same price as the top competitor, like Rogue, for example. But then the problems start rising when you add the accessories and the shipping. Shipping in particular is very expensive. We spent about $2,000 just to ship this rack over to California. And so, depending on how close or far you are from South Carolina, you are gonna have a similar experience. So, obviously, different if you can just go and pick it up, right? But aside from that, it's just such a pleasure to work with Sorinex in general, with how much they are on top of the line of whether you built the rack correctly, if you needed a little bit more paint, if something was missing, they'll get you for the most part. So it's you getting this rack or not, it ends up becoming an issue of what's your budget and what you want to do with the rack once you buy it. Because this particular rack, you can end up expanding it into a complete power rack by adding another section in front of the rack and having a complete rack in front of it to do other type of stuff. Right now, we're in the process of trying to make this into a quadruple cable station, and we'll add a video once we finish that project. So you compare that, for example, to let's say Rogue. Rogue, you can get a much cheaper rack at a much cheaper shipping cost, but you won't get the cable stations. Like you can get the lag row for sure, but not the adjustable cable station that's actually hooked up to the rack. And so the main functionality that adds to you is that you can add bands to the cable stations, and you can do some things that are a little bit on the creative side, because basically every single hole is an angle that you can use to train a muscle. So it just makes it so that your imagination is what's going to limit you on what exercises you want to do and what type of stations you want to set up. These jammer arms have been used as a hip thrust station by pulling them all the way down and adding a bar holder in between. We'll show that at a later time. They have been used as deadlift stations. They have been used for chest presses, shoulder presses, you guys name it, it's been done. So this pretty much sums up what the Apex rack is. I invite you guys to send them an email if you're interested in buying one, and they'll probably build up and work with you on the spaces that you have. So if you guys have any particular questions or want to know more information about particular accessory, don't be shy, leave a comment below and we'll get back to you. Have a good one, guys. Alex out.